Good morning, everybody. It is the 10th of January, and I am so excited as we get ready, whether it's 9 week or anything else that we're rolling into. I know everybody has their own goals for what the next couple of months look like. And today I just wanted to take a little bit of time because I know we talked a little bit last week about day one and a little bit about the coaching stories. But I think every single time day one comes around and like making that commitment to yourself and then putting it out to other people that you're going to do it. I know I harbor a lot of fear around that because it's like, okay, like if I say this and I don't follow through, then what happens? What is that going to say about me? What is everybody else going to think about me? And how am I going to feel about myself? And really related to that like that concept, thinking about hope and being able to set the limit higher for myself than I have in the past. Like it's like, okay, like I believe I can do this thing. Now what's next? What's next and what's going to take the floor out from underneath me if I do and don't get there? And for those of you, I mean, everybody on the call today knows me, but for those that haven't been around as long or don't know me as well, like I have spent so long doing everything that I was told to do. Like I grew up in a framework that I was told, like I was an athlete and I was a straight A student and I volunteered and I went to church and all of those things. I was the poster child for being able to do all the things that I was told I needed to do. I was exactly opposite of the poster child that needed to decide what to do for herself. Because if a teacher gave me a prompt and was like, this is your essay, write it, I was like, perfect. I got this on lockdown. And if the teacher, if you had a scale picture of like one of those like red light, green, like this spectrum things that show like what the volume level is, if somebody said like, you can create your own prompt, write whatever you want, I was in yes, Steph, your face right there. I was in immediate lockdown because I wanted somebody to tell me what to do so that I knew how to do it well. So on this journey, the ability of going into day one, it's incredibly containing because I know I have a program that I'm looking at. I know what I'm doing. I know what the steps are moving forward. And there's also this looming anxiety of what happens if I fail and how do I push myself? How do I push my own limits? Because I don't know what the context for that might look like because I write that myself. And even, for example, getting ready for this call, I have come to love talking on calls. And it's one of the things I really enjoy, which is a huge shift for me because for so long, I didn't feel like my space, like my voice was worthy of taking up space. If I walked into a restaurant and I was sitting there eating and there's one last piece of like toast or whatever it is on like I always think of bruschetta on the table of the restaurant and there's one last piece, like God forbid I be that person that take the last one because I grew up in an environment where if you took that last piece and you weren't like, you didn't ask everybody if they wanted it first, they're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that she took that last piece without asking. So I've always felt like I needed permission to take up space or for my voice to take up space in a room. And that being linked, like I go in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get on this call. And I finally started feeling comfortable with that. And then like my insecurities, like as like we start this new program, as there's change, as there's transition, as things shift a little bit. Thank you, Jess. As things start to shift a little bit, I'm like, it undermines, like I'm like on shaky ground because I'm not doing something. I'm not in the middle of a program that I'm comfortable with. I don't know exactly what I'm looking forward to the next day. And because of that, I start to back down. So I literally sat down and I spent probably close to 3 hours putting together a slideshow for this yesterday. And there was absolutely zero reason that it needed to take me that long, except for I was looking at it because when I feel like I don't know what comes next, I try to find any certainty that I can. And sometimes that means sitting and spinning my wheels over and over and over, because if it's predictable and I know what comes next, I feel safer. And I really sat down and I'm going to use some of that slideshow, but I'm not going to use all of it because what I realized this morning as I sat down is that slideshow was my attempt to perfect what I was presenting to you guys because I wasn't comfortable with speaking from my heart. I was once again distancing from myself and being like, I'm not going to go into this and trust myself. I'm going to go into this and create a framework that I know I can succeed in. And I think that oftentimes is the difference in our growth. We set this structure. Yes, we set this structure. I was saying yes to Shanice's comment, but I'll talk about that in a second. We set a structure for ourselves that we know that we're not going to fail at. Because if there's anybody on this call, and I know several of you guys on this call, like, we don't like to fail. It's not something we like to do. And like, even feeling like failure, like, it goes like, for me, it's not I failed, it's I am a failure. And that's a really slippery slope really darn quickly. So I protect myself when I go into a new program, like, okay, this is what the program says. This is what I think is possible, instead of just completely dropping the bar and being like, this is where I am today and this is how I'm going to show up. And this morning, so I had that slideshow, I put all that time in it, so I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I like sure as heck wasn't going to mess up, because I put my armor on and I'm like, perfect, I got it all laid out. I know what to do. This is golden. And then I got on a call with Ashley, my coach's coach, this morning. And she goes, we are going for proud, not perfect, which is what Shanice just dropped in there, because this isn't about perfection. I think I went in thinking it was about perfection. I went in thinking, once I get to that place, once I meet the criteria in this box, I'm going to feel the way I want to feel. And the reality is, it was not about checking the boxes, because if all I'm focused on is checking the boxes, I'm missing the entire point of what is it that I actually need. And we chose the topics for these calls several months ago. And I want to tell a little bit of a story before I pull up the slideshow and launch into it. We chose, I think it was early December, we chose the topics for these calls. And knowing that next week, tomorrow, is going to be the first day of 9-week Control Freak, and knowing that we were right after the start of the year, we chose hopes and fears, because I think those two are so linked. We go in and we hit this first week and we are like, I am ready to go. I am ready to go. I've got big goals. The energy, the excitement, the motivation is all there. And then you get to day 3. For me, it's usually day 3 or 4. For some people, it's day 7. For some people, it's day 10. And you get there, and this first week sucks. It sucks because you don't know the equipment. It sucks because you don't know the moves. It sucks because it's brand new. You don't know the transitions. And when I don't do things perfectly, I feel like I failed. So that hope is all of a sudden sideswiped by my fears that I'm not doing well enough. Yes, trying to figure out the ball with 9-week yesterday. Like, and if I have this mindset of I need to do it 100% in order for me to be valid, in order for me to make progress, I will restart myself every time, because my dialogue is, I haven't done it well enough. Let me start over. So we chose this, right? We chose this topic in December, and I've known it's coming. And I'm like, I'm not quite exactly sure how I want to tie that in. I had this general idea of, like, hope is big and fear comes and undermines it. How do we account for that? And how do we plan for that? And then yesterday morning, I sat down to do my personal development. And the first thing I did, when I get anxious, I write things down, because if I make a list, at least I know it's living somewhere. And so I sat down to do my personal development, and I knew what was on the docket for yesterday. I knew it was a busy day. I knew I hadn't contained myself enough for this call yet in order to put it down on pieces of paper. And I wanted that structure for myself. And I wrote down on the sticky note, and I never do this in my morning routine. I wrote down on this sticky note, write content for hopes and fears. And I put it on the desk, and then I started my normal morning routine. And as I sat down, I had known from the day before where I left off in my personal development. It was about resilience. It was about the ability to get back up and keep going, not just regardless of, but because of what we've been through. Being able to grow through and learn through and take failure as feedback instead of something that's final to who we are. And I sit down, and so I'm expecting this personal development on resilience. And I read the little bit of what I'd read the day before, and then I read the next sentence, and it goes into 2 things. The first things it goes into is people that are resilient practice spirituality. And I was like, what the heck does that even mean? Because I don't I've got this is a whole different
call. Is it me? Okay, you guys
No.
are moving. Sounds good.
It's a dang internet.
Me? Am I frozen? Hold on.
You were
for 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. So Becky, I thought it was me. So yeah, caveat, I'm currently reading, and just like disclaimer, because I am like a history major at heart. So I always feel the need to quote things when they come from different places. I am reading Brene Brown, Gifts of Perfection. So like a lot of this content comes from that. Oh no, it was no. I was like, I thought you were talking about the book, Becky. Like I thought it was just me, but it isn't. So a lot of this stuff is from that personal development yesterday. So yes, and please let me know when I freeze, because that will periodically happen. But I sat down and I opened this. I'm like, spirituality, like what? Why spirituality? And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll keep reading. Literally the next paragraph, it says, these are the 3 benchmarks of being resilient. And the first one is cultivating hope. And I'm just sitting there in that moment, and I am like looking at the sticky note, and I'm looking at the content, and I'm like, what are the chances that that is exactly where this went? And I know it's not about chance, it's about where it's placed. And I was like, you know what? Sometimes in order to believe that we can be bigger than we are, we have to let go of the fear that we're not going to be enough where we're at. And that belief, sometimes we can't hold that for ourselves. And we need to pour it in, and pour into a group, or pour into whether it's God or the universe, and kind of let go. Because if we're going to get to the next level that we want to be at, we have to let go of the expectation of what that's going to look like. So I'm going to pull up the slideshow. This is almost always a fiasco, but we will see how I do it, because I have had a lot of practice and I am getting better. And so we will see what happens. Share my desktop. And I want to show you guys. Okay, Megan, you're the first one. Okay, Shanice, I can see you too. So thumbs up, we can see the screen. So hope. I have always felt like hope is belief. Like I have seen those 2 words as synonymous with each other. If I am hoping, then that means that I'm going to be able to build this beautiful picture of where I'm going next. And the thing is, hope is not, yes, it is important to have a vision of where we're going, but I've always seen this murky in between, okay, where are we starting versus like, how do I get to that vision that I have for myself? And I think on day 1, I don't know who else has a vision, but I always have this vision of like, okay, what is it going to look like when I get there? And sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to do all the days of the program. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to do all the things perfectly, and then I'm going to feel good. The downfall and the pitfall with that, though, is that we're not taking into consideration everything in the middle. If we look at where we're starting and we look at where we're going, we're not accounting for everything that's going to happen on the in-between, which means if we're not accounting for what happens in between, we're not going to be able to look at what do I do when I'm there. So last week I had asked, when you wake up on March 14th, the last day of 9 week, or if you're starting 75 hard, 75 days from now, I have not counted that out. I am a social worker, not a mathematician. I am not about to do the math right now, but whatever day that is for you, not how do you want to look when you wake up? When you open your eyes, what do you want your first thought to be? Or if you're like, I started wanting to wake up and not feel the panic of everything that I had to do when I went to work that day. I wanted to not wake up paralyzed by the fear of what wasn't done or what I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do. If that's waking up and saying like, I'm at peace, or my mind is not rushing to the next thing, think about what it is and how you want to feel when you wake up. Not your thoughts, but your feelings. How is it on that day that you want to wake up? And sometimes we get this construct that in order to get to that specific feeling, we have to take specific steps, which means if I go in and I'm like, I'm going to do my controlled stretches every day in 9 week, and I am going to show up and I'm going to read my personal development every day, that day that something happens that I don't do it, now I've not only compromised my belief that I can do it, I've also compromised my belief that I can get to my goal. Because when we hold that specific steps are the only way to get to a specific outcome, we feel that we've derailed ourselves the second we don't do something the way we think it should look. And the reality is, I needed to censor myself. Sorry, I have like my child brain. Megan, thank you for being the first one on my screen. I knew you didn't do that because there was about an F-bomb that was going to come out of my mouth, and I'm glad I didn't do it. And you're going to screw up. I'm going to screw up. We're going to do something this week that we're going to be like, why did I do that? Or why did I not do that? Because one of the things that Ashley talked about on her call this morning is pressing play on your workout. Or if you're doing 75 hard, pressing play on your 2 workouts, that is 1 decision a day, or that is 2 decisions a day. Your choice to do your nutrition, that's probably about 90 decisions in a day. And your choice to do your personal development, that's probably about 7 or 8 more. And then your choice to show up as the person you want to show up as, I don't even want to put a number on that, because the number of decisions that we make in a day to live into our truth and to own who we are versus to perfect, perform, prove, or please somebody else so that we feel better about who we are, that's countless decisions. So as we go into this, I will definitely let you know how this plays into hope. So this week, next week, 3 weeks from now, your body is going to be challenged. And that's not the hardest part. If you're doing 9 week, God, that's less than 30 minutes a day that your body is going to be challenged. That is not where the hard work is. It's part of the vehicle that transforms your mind, because you then know, if I press play on this workout, you know you can do it. You're building proof that you can do it, because when you're starting to do something you've never done, you're not going to look in your past and find the proof that it can be done. You might look to somebody else and realize that it can be done. Like, you might look on Instagram and be following that girl and be like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. Or you might look and be like, well, how come she can do it and I can't? And that's the thing. It's how we decide if we are sitting in a place where we want to shame ourselves, or we feel like everything's easier for everybody else, or we have to have it be perfect, or we're not good enough. We're either going to throw shade at ourselves or we're going to throw shade at other people. And at the end of the day, neither one of those is going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get you where you want to be. It's going to get you backwards. So if we're looking, for me, I'll vacillate between the two. If I want to be somewhere and somebody else has where I want to be, I look at it, I'm like, why am I not good enough that I didn't do that thing first? Or why am I not good enough that I can't do that thing that she's doing right now? And that goes to, well, clearly they don't have it as hard as I do, because clearly if they had it as hard as I did, they wouldn't be doing that, because there must not be anything wrong with me. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like, maybe there is something wrong with me, and that's why I can't do it. None of that comes from a hopeful place. All of that comes from a place of me believing that I am powerless to change my life. Because power is our ability to believe that we can affect change. And the moment that we believe that we do not have the ability to take control or affect change in our life is when we feel powerless. And I don't know about anybody else, but if I feel powerless, I will spew in all sorts of ways. I will try to take down somebody else in my mind, because I won't say that out loud because I'm not confrontational. I will try to take down myself. I will scatter all over. I will spin. I will overplan. I will prove, perform, perfect, and please. And I will be 7 days into that program and be like, I could have gone harder. And I think especially for 9 week, it's important to remember there are gonna be days where you could have gone harder. You might look at yourself and say, did I do the best I could with what I had today? And that answer is no. And that sucks. And some days, that's the workout. It's the workout to sit and be like, I did not show up the way I wanted to show up today. And the questions that come next are why not? And what do I do tomorrow? Because you're not going to go back and change that you didn't go all out in that 30 seconds of that Tabata. You're not going to change that. You're not going to change what you did then, but you can change what you did tomorrow. And that growth is so much more than the muscular growth that we have. It's so much more than the weight loss, or being able to set boundaries is huge, but it's also recognizing, how do I push my own limits? So here's the thing. Hope, it's not an emotion. Hope is something that we can build, that we can learn, we can grow, and we can develop. It's not something that's passive. It's not, I sit here and say, I hope I can have that thing. Yeah, you wish you can have that thing. You don't hope you can have that thing, because hope is something that you take action on, because there's 3 components of hope. In order to start to truly hope for something, we have to have the ability to set realistic goals. And I know we have a goal setting call, and I'll link that so it's here and everybody can find it. The first step in hope is, where am I going? Where am I going? And where am I really? Not like, okay, like this is where I want to be. When I started Transform 20, we did a prep calendar the like 2.5 months before. And I was a college athlete. I was a 4-sport athlete all the way through college, not through college. Holy crap. All through high school, I was a 4-sport athlete. I was a college athlete. I was a coach. And then here I am, 2017. So I was 5 years post-graduation. And I was used to being able to show up to a workout and put in my all. And they had this thing, like it was a whole compilation of Shaun T workouts, which like you guys have done Shaun T workouts, you know what that looks like. And so here's Transform, like T25, which is not Transform. It's not Transform 20. It was T25. I'm like, 25 minutes. How hard can that be? And then 15 minutes later, I'm laying on the floor and I'm letting the workout run, because it didn't used to register in the Beachbody Challenge tracker if you didn't let it play all the way to the end. So here I am. I'm like, I can do this. I can crush it. And then I don't. And I'm laying on the floor watching it run, because I am too ashamed to let other people know that I didn't finish that workout. So I would literally sit on the floor and watch it until the end, so that nobody else in that challenge tracker group knew that I did not finish that workout. And that is because I was not able to accept where I truly was. And where I truly was my body was not physically ready to do a 25-minute program all out, and I wouldn't modify because I hadn't had to modify in the past. This isn't about where am I at my best and where am I going from there. This is the distance between where I am now and where I'm going next. And my best and where I'm going, and where I am now and where I'm going, they might be the same. What's up, Shanice?
I just wanted to add that there's a lot of conversation in the group about how, yes, we all used to be like athletes at some point in our lives. And we struggle with the fact that 30-minute workouts or 20-minute workouts are like really hard. And then we get into that comparison of like, I used to be an athlete. Okay, yes, you were an athlete when you were 18 years old, when you were 21 years old, when you were 22 years old. But like, you are in a whole different time in your life right now, and your body has changed so much and your mindset has shifted so much that it's okay to just meet yourself where you're at and grow from there, instead of comparing yourself to that person when you were 15 or 18 or whatever, because you're not that person any longer. And I had to, and I don't want to take away from what you're saying, Erica, but I had to really dig deep into myself and be like, dude, stop doing that, because I would self-sabotage my entire programs and my entire journey just because I was trying to compare 18-year-old Shanice to 28-year-old Shanice. And it's like, those are two different people in completely different parts of their lives, in completely different chapters of their journey. And like, close that dang chapter, which Erin likes to say all the time, close that chapter of like chapter 4 or chapter 5 when you're 18, and then really open up chapter 20 and be okay with being in chapter 20 and not being in chapter 4 any longer, because chapter 4 you've learned so much, and in chapter 20 you're going to continue to grow just in a whole different way.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. Thank you. And so step number 1 in hope is sitting with yourself and knowing, like Shanice was just saying, knowing where you are now, letting go of who you were, knowing who you are now, truly looking at that. Because I think my digging deep was acknowledging where I was. It was acknowledging that I was not healthy, that I was not happy, that I was burnout, I was exhausted, and I was numbing everything, because the dissonance for me was I had been taught you have to be okay. So I was unable to accept the fact that I was not. I was the person that was okay. I was the one that held it all together. I was going to let people down if I didn't have it all together, because they saw me as strong, and I knew that I was the one that people looked to. So what happened when my shit fell apart? And then I wouldn't let it go, because I was constantly duct taping a shattered glass. And if you constantly duct tape a shattered glass, it takes away the ability for you to replace that glass. It is never going to work as well until you realize that's broken and it's okay. And it's time to do something differently. So step 1 in hope is I know where I want to go. That statement to yourself, I know where I want to go. Step number 2, being able to figure out what you need in order to get where you want to go. Do I have the tools to get me from where I am to where I want to be? One of those tools is being able to be flexible enough to realize that it doesn't always look like we think it's going to look. It might not, and Shanice, I'm going to use you as an example here. It might not look like 80 days of 80-day obsession. It might not look like that. It might look like 63 days. And then realizing this is not okay for my body right now. And if you had pushed through those 80 days, you would have injured yourself, and you probably would have made it to the end, and it probably would have felt good. And by stopping, you looked at, if your goal was, if your goal surface level, like 100% down to the bottom was, I'm going to hit day 80, then that would have been great. I know that's not your goal, because you've told me that's not your goal. I know your goal is to grow within yourself and learn who you are, own your voice. Megan, I know that one of the things you're working on is protecting your yes and owning your no. And if that's your goal at the end of 9 weeks isn't my body is going to look really awesome. That might be one of them, but most of us don't want our body to look really good just because we want our body to look really good. We have to think about, what is it underneath? What is our surface level goal? Why is that your goal? How is that going to make you feel? Do you want to be able to stand up in a room and use your voice? Do you want to be able to walk away from something that isn't serving you? What is that underlying goal? And that statement to yourself, and I am going to put this on a sticky note and I'm going to put it somewhere where I can see it every day. I know how to get there. I am persistent. I can tolerate disappointment, and I can try again. Because step number 2 is, what are the tools in your toolbox? Do you have the tools in your toolbox right now to get you where you're going? And are you getting them out of the goddamn toolbox to begin with? Because if they're in there collecting dust, they are not going to do you any good. That is, like, if you are in this group, if you lean into the group, if you lean out of the group, that's okay too. Sometimes people need to lean out in order to get where you're going, and that's fantastic. And if you're sitting like I was, sitting on that floor, watching that television, not modifying, I was not using the tools that I had, because I also wasn't talking to anybody about how I was feeling. And I needed to talk, because I was hiding if I didn't. And it's, are you using the tools? Do you have them? And if not, how do you get them? Because if you start trying to go forward on those realistic goals that you've planned, but you don't have the tools, you're going to feel hopeless, because you will fail. And the third one is, we cultivate belief in ourselves. Hope is setting realistic goals. I know where I'm going. Being able to be flexible on where you're going, and then believing in ourselves. And this hit me because I always felt belief in self had to come first. I felt like hope started with believing in ourselves. And being able to read this and see it doesn't. Hope starts, belief in ourself starts when we start with, where am I? Where am I going? What tools do I need? I would stop myself every single time. How many of you guys have stopped something because you felt like you couldn't do it? Me too. So many times, because God forbid I fail at something. Belief in self is not where hope starts. Belief in self is when we've gotten to the final stage of hope, because it allows us to keep going. Self-statement there is, I can do this. Hope is a combination of setting goals, having the tenacity and perseverance to pursue them, and believing in our own abilities. And tenacity and perseverance are important there, because just because we have the tools doesn't mean we use them. This culture that we've grown up in, we have so much. Whoops, hold on. We have so much around us that is about the fast, the quick, and the easy. We see people share where they're at, and we usually compare. We look for people as inspiration that are further along in their journeys than we are right now. So we see, okay, the distance between where I am and where they are seems really small, because we've only seen a small portion of their journey. We don't see everything that lies underneath. And so then constantly we're going to, why am I not there right now? What is it about me that I haven't gotten there fast enough? Sustainable change in ourselves is not quick change. It is showing up in the small moments every day. And that's more than just pressing play on that workout. That is that moment where you go to invalidate yourself because you feel like you haven't done enough, and you say, okay, maybe I didn't meet my expectation today, and this is what I'm going to do about it tomorrow. The tenacity and the perseverance to do differently tomorrow to get yourself 1% closer to who you want to be. Also, I like my little quote there because I love my analogies. Your oven has to preheat before you can cook the roast. No matter how quickly I want my oven because I just forgot to turn the preheat button on until I had everything chopped, that oven is still going to take a solid 10 minutes to preheat, and there ain't nothing that I'm going to do about it. Sometimes you got to sit and wait and let yourself do the work. If we buy into the belief that fun, fast, and easy is the reality, we are going to set ourselves up for hopelessness, because fun, fast, and easy doesn't match with that step number one of hope. Fun, fast, and easy is not realistic all the time. There are times when fun, fast, and easy is true, and it happens. And there is not a pill that I am going to take that is going to teach me what hard work and showing up for myself can do. Because if I take that pill, I've found a tool that helps, but I also haven't found how to cultivate that within myself. Breathe for a second. So when we set unrealistic goals and expectations, or we fail to acknowledge our true starting point, and then we run into that hard thing, our fears come up. Because I started and, oh my gosh, like I was going to press play on this workout and bot is not loading. But I'm rigid. I was going to do it right now. I have no other time today to do it. I don't want to do it tomorrow because everybody else is doing it today. I didn't do it well enough. This was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to turn on. I was supposed to be able to do it. Or I don't know if anybody's ever like with nutrition, like I've meal prepped before and it's gone bad. And I'm like, I put in all this work, like F that, like that was supposed to work. I put in all this work. Why did it not work the way that it was supposed to? Sometimes it's not going to work the way it's supposed to, and that's just the way it is. You can find meaning in it and that's fine. Or you can look at it and say that didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And that sucks. And you can either dwell in that and spiral down, or you can say, what do I do next? Or what is this teaching me? Why is this happening for me? And what can I take from it? Because sometimes it's teaching us to show up and that we can do it differently. I remember sitting in the car on the way to work, my first round of 80-day obsession, and I'd forgotten my lunch. And I was so upset because I wasn't going to eat lunch at the unit. And I felt that panic set in, and I go into a vacuum and all the blood rushes out of my face because that's how I feel when I'm triggered, because I felt like a failure. How the heck could you forget that lunchbox? You put it right there. How hard was it for you just to grab that? What are you going to do now? Look, now nothing you've done has counted, which is all like, they're all cognitive distortions. And we're like, I'm going down the rabbit hole. And then I look at my watch and I'm like, I'm 15 minutes early. And there's a grocery store right there. I know how to get the stuff from my containers. And so I went to the grocery store, and it wasn't what I had packed, but because I had the tenacity and the perseverance to show up every day and pour into that nutrition planning every week, I now knew how to go to that grocery store and buy what I needed for that day. I also am privileged enough to have the ability to be able to purchase that on the fly. And so I know that there are differences there sometimes. And if it had just been a pill, if I'd forgotten that pill, I wouldn't have been able to go to that grocery store and do that. Because there are going to be obstacles. We're going to hit obstacles this week, and we're going to hit obstacles next week. And the question is, are we going to blame the scenario? It was supposed to be easy, and now it's really hard work and it sucks, and it's not worth the effort. Or this is easier for everybody else than it is for me. What's wrong with me? If we go to either one of those two places, we're going to stay stuck in fear. And what we can do, cultivating hope looks like naming our obstacles, anticipating our obstacles. Guys, like ladies, we know, we might not know what all the obstacles look like, but I know if I don't prepare, I'm not going to succeed. I know that if I'm overextending myself and saying yes to everything, I'm not going to have the time to do what I want to make a priority. If I say yes to everything, I'll be forced to say no to the things that matter most to me. And then I'll be mad at myself. And at the end of the day, it's my responsibility to say no to things that don't serve me and to say yes to things that do. And that might be very difficult sometimes. What else we can do is become aware of the negative self-talk. Because you're going to say, that sucked. I didn't do that. This isn't worth it. This isn't working. I put in all this work. I put in all this work. Why is it not working? Because you're not there yet. Just because you're not there yet doesn't mean it's not working. Our end goal, that place you want to be, like, guys, I kind of hope you never get to that end goal, because that end goal should keep changing. Because if that end goal isn't changing, because like you're going to get there eventually. If it's not changing, you're probably dead, because like once you hit something, you make a new goal and you keep going. Surrounding yourself with a community. Sometimes it's hard to be in a community and see other people going where you want to be. That is hard for me because I feel less than. And it's okay to speak that. I'm feeling resentment right now because I feel like I'm not moving as fast as I want to move. When we sit in shame, connection heals shame. Shame drives disconnection. When we sit in shame, we don't want to connect with other people. But the second we do, we have somebody, if it's somebody that's earned that right to listen to you, somebody that's safe for you to, like, I'm not going to tell Joe Blow on the street, like, man, like, I feel like I'm not moving as fast as I want to move. Like, that might go terribly. But if I tell somebody I trust, and then I know will reflect that back to me and say, like, Erica, what's going on right now? Like, that's really hard. And what does it look like next? That can open a whole lot of doors. Practice flexibility. It doesn't have to look like you think it's going to look. I love the structure because I know what's going to happen next and I can plan for it, and that feels real safe. And When it doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go, what next? How do I do this differently? Don't make it easier than it is. Don't make it as easy as it looks like it is for her. Don't make it as easy as it was before. Because if you think it's easier than it is, you're going to feel like you're failing. Remind yourself, this is hard in this moment and it's okay for it to be hard. Whether it's hard for her or hard for him or hard for me, it doesn't matter what it is for them. If it's hard for me, it's hard for me, and that's okay. Also, flip side, don't make it harder than it is. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Some things do come easily and do come naturally. I am the queen of, well, if I didn't struggle for it, I didn't earn it. Homegirl, like, you do not need to be like, the amount of shit that I would carry on my shoulders so that I felt like I'd earned it and nobody pointed at me and said, like, that was given to you. You didn't work for that. Sometimes things are given to you, but sometimes things are given to you because of all the work you've put in before and all that work that nobody knows, like, people don't know anything about. People don't know your story unless you choose to tell them. Not everybody has earned the right to hear your story. That work that you put in 10 years ago might be why that thing comes easily now. Don't make it harder than it is easier. Like, either don't reject something that is given to you because you feel like you don't deserve to have it easy. You've worked for that. When the hopelessness starts to creep in, because it's going to, I don't know if it's day 3 or day 7 or day 21 or day 35, you're not alone, because that hopelessness will feel like powerlessness. And we do a whole lot of things when we feel like we're out of control. You do have the ability to make change. That change might not be catapulting from where you are to where you want to be right away. And that's okay. We don't catapult all the time. Sometimes we hold at the same space and then we jump forward 5 steps. Sometimes we jump forward 5 steps and go back 2. Am I trending in the right direction? Am I trending in the direction that I want to go, not the direction that they want me to go? And at the end of the day, coming back and remembering, I know where I want to go. I know how to get there and I have the tools. And if I don't, I know I can go find them. And I'm persistent. I can tolerate disappointment. I can try again, and I can do this. I just need to check my expectations at the door sometimes and realize that it takes persistence over and over and over again. And I'm going to unshare my screen and kind of regroup. And we have about 10 minutes. So I want to hold on. This is where I try to figure out how to work this. Feedback from you guys. That is like, I really just hope you guys run into this with a game plan and knowing that hope can have structure and move forward from here. So is there anybody that like has something that really stuck with them from that?
There's a lot going on in the chat, Erica, if you want to look at that first.
I will read that if you guys want to talk.
Yeah, there's been a lot of input about what you're saying or what you've said.
Okay. It's going to take me a little bit to scan this because there is a lot, and I love that there's a lot.
I think I really love what Brianna said about how everyone has different mountains to climb. And it's important not to compare where we're at with other people's mountains because they're different. Is your hand raised, Brianna?
Yeah, I was gonna say if I could speak after you.
Go ahead, Bri, you're good.
On what she was saying about the mountains, it's something that I have had to learn because, like Erica was stating, I have always been extremely hard on myself growing up, especially with a dad that was very love him, but me and him have a very strenuous relationship. He's big apologizers, is what we call them. Megan knows my dad. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. Since I was little, it's one of those things, if I messed up, like, you were in so much trouble. So as I grew up, anytime like I didn't do something right, or if my kids didn't have something, or if my husband didn't have something, I took that so personal, because I felt like I have failed everybody. I failed myself. You know, I could be planned. I had everything written down. I had my lists, but things happen, and I've had to remind myself and remember that no matter how planned and organized and prepared you are, you still have that potential of not getting to where you need to go. So you need to find another way to navigate to get to that place. So like I've had to realize, like, okay, everyone can be on the same mountain. Everybody could be climbing that mountain, but there are so many different trails that people are going to be taking to get to the top of that mountain. So that's something that I've had to take with me and learn. And I actually was reading something from Trent and another person about comparison is the thief of joy. And that really resonated with me, knowing that like I can't compare where Megan or Erica or everybody else is in this journey right now. I have to compare where I'm starting myself today, because no matter how much I want to compare, everybody is in their own journey, at their own time, at their own pace. And I'm just really excited to start this 9-week control freak with everybody tomorrow too. Just want to throw that in there. And then Shanice had made a comment about when we were 18-year-olds comparing from 18 to now. I have to remember myself too, like, oh, I miss that body. But I have to also remember I had that body because I was doing it off of pure, what's the word? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Little guy's distracting me. I felt like I had to do it for everybody else in high school, if that makes sense. Like I had to make sure I watched what I eat and was always exercising, always doing it. I always did it for everybody else but me. And now I'm in that stage where I'm like, I'm doing this for me. Like I deserve this, not because of everybody else. So that's all I have to share.
And I think, Bree, like hearing that, I think is so huge, because so many of us we have things that we believe are true because our parents taught us that they were. And we didn't necessarily learn to question, is that what I really accept to be true for myself? For me, an indicator of that is like when I start to think that's just the way things are, I have to stop and say, like, is it really how things are? Is it how I've been taught that things are? And do I want to continue to allow that to be true? And I think going into 9-week, like in whatever it is we're going into, and Becky, you're talking about, like you'd mentioned, like all you can control is your mind. And I think that's so true. Like often I will work with my like kiddos and be like, okay, I want you to put in this circle all the things you control. And in this circle, I want to put you to put all the things you can't control. And they start trying to think about it and they look at it and they're like, look at me like I'm like freaking ridiculous. And they're like, but all I control is me. And like, you're right. You can influence other things, but all you control is what you think, how you feel, and what you do about it. And sometimes you're not even in complete control of all of those. It's like starting with the awareness. You can start with being aware of what they are and then going from there. And I love that you shared that, because I think that's so incredibly important, because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to be like, I need to refilter and refilter. It's exhausting and nobody can see that work. No, if you're doing a physical workout, people can see that. People can't see the mental work that you're carrying. And I think that's why community can be so helpful, because it always feels like we're so stuck in our heads and nobody recognizes that. And so many of us are carrying it. And I think so many of us here, we have been so unseen in so many ways because we checked all the boxes, but nobody sees how much effort it actually takes us to check those. So I'm just like, I'm so grateful for all of you guys every day and everything that you bring to this community, because really, truly, I think that it's not about the workouts. It's about having a place where we can say, this is what I was carrying, and unpack that a little bit and know that we're not alone in it. Because I know for me, feeling seen is one of the biggest things that I never had. And I feel seen in this community and safe in this community. And I think that we can, no, I don't think, I know we can only grow when we feel safe enough to step outside the cave and not worry about the tigers or not be paralyzed by the fear that the tigers are going to come get us. And I know this week, if you're in the 9-week Control Freak, even if you're not doing 9-week Control Freak, like there is the 9-week Control Freak group. Becky, I know you were going to do 9-week Control Freak. I love that you added, like that you're in that bod group anyway, because you know what? Sometimes taking control doesn't look like 9-week Control Freak is about taking control in the way you need to. And that might not be that program. And that's okay. Make sure, like we do have, I know we have the Facebook group, we have the bod group, whichever is your preference, like they're engaged. Don't feel like you need to engage in both. If it's not your cup of tea, that's completely okay. We're going to be in both places. If you have questions, if those thoughts come up, like feel free to throw it up on one of the walls. Today was a hard day. Today was a hard day. And this is why. Like this does not, somebody had mentioned the other day, I think it was in the Facebook group, was like, I don't want to bring other people down. And I think the fear of bringing other people, Becky, I don't think it was you, but I see that face. It was, you might have, but somebody else did too that I'm thinking of. And guys, like we're not here to gold plate the journey. Like there are things that are not gold and are not shiny, and growth is not always pretty. And it's okay to share the hard. I think that's where we grow. And this week I would say I had some things because I want to get you guys. So the cook-off is, we are doing a cook-off and we still need to kind of nail down. There will be more information about that coming out, but the Chopped cook-off is this Saturday. And so throughout this week, when we get that information, we'll post it up there and what that looks like. Super Saturday was yesterday. There weren't a ton of new announcements. They actually released that there will be a huge announcement with 9-week Control Freak, but it got postponed until the 21st. So whatever that is, I have no idea what it is. When we know, we'll share it. The summer workout is going to be a 90-day, 6 days a week summer workout designed by Amwala Caesar, who also designed 6 weeks of the work and 4 weeks of the prep. So that will be the launch this summer. And they haven't even named it yet, but that's where we're going as far as that program. Then Shaun T has his program coming out this spring. And like, I know a couple people are really excited for his program. It will be a dance program, but it will have like spurts of like insanity style workouts in the middle of it as well. And then if you guys, I know I'll be available. I'm working on a way to figure out how to, yeah, he is kind of terrifying. I'm like, they're like dance program by Shaun T. And I'm like, is it though? Like, is it really like, or am I going to die? Cause that's like 20 minutes, like, oh, 20 minutes, no big deal. And that, yeah, yes. So it is almost 10 o'clock on the dot. I'm so grateful. Does anybody, before we wrap up, does anybody else have anything else they want to say? Feel free to unmute yourself. Thank you, Shanice. Thank you. We will see you guys next week. Shanice is talking on kicking perfectionism and kind of wrapping up. Okay, so we had these hopes, we had these fears, they came up this week, and what do we do with them now? So join us next Sunday, same time, same place. I'll try to remember to put the link up. Hello, cute babies that are on Breeze Lab. Bye, guys. Love you all.